Thank you, Annick. So yes, we will start off with a number of questions on the Multimeter. So the first question is, what is the level of the long-term, so if more than 10 years, monthly installment that an average family is willing to pay for energy renovation? This is basically what an average family would pay per month, and the options were, I think that you can show them on the screen, Annick. Okay, at least two options are already on the screen. So it's less than 100 euro per month, between 100 and 250 euros per month, or more than 250 euros per month. So it's just to understand, okay, what an average family would be willing to pay each month for their energy efficiency. So we'll leave you some time. Okay. Oops.
Yeah, no, I wanted to see how many we were in the webinar in order to see how long I have to wait. We see that 21 persons already answered the question. We will wait some seconds extra.
Yeah.
Voilà. And then we can go to a second question, I think.
Maybe just to give an indication on this one, is that indeed it's rather around 100, 150. That would be an average that we have seen in other types of solutions. So that's important to remember. It's very limited in terms of monthly installments. So that's important for the solution. Okay. The second one is where we ask whether in your market you have a long-term loan solution for more than 20 years, a personal loan, and not a mortgage loan, because of course that will be probably longer than 10 years, 20 years. Okay, yes, no. So it's a personal loan, not a mortgage loan. Okay, 20, that's more or less it. So a lot of people, more or less half, don't know. And then, okay. So in some countries, so you don't have a personal loan for more than 20 years, so at least for 7 respondents. So that means that probably the only way to do it is to work with a mortgage loan. So there's also something that we will come back to later. Okay, thank you. Last question. There is, okay, if you really want to go for a deep energy renovation, that makes often requires a combination of several energy efficiency measures, and the more you add energy efficiency measures and you combine them, the more assistance that you will require. And so the question is whether you have sufficient technical assistance to homeowners already available in your country. Okay. So also 23, so that's fine. So that we have a general view. So let's say more or less half say yes, there is already some sort of support at the level of the when applying for the loan. Other half says more or less says either partially or no, there is no particular support at that stage. That's also an important one to see. That's also what we try to do with the ER 2.0 solution, is also to see how we can provide some finance for covering that technical assistance. Right, okay. So now we can start presenting the loan. So the first breakthrough project was aimed at developing an energy renovation loan. It's a personal loan, so not a mortgage loan, focused on energy renovation and some ancillary investments. So that means if you want to insulate the roof and you need then to repaint it, okay, so the fact that you will want to repaint it can also be included in the loan. What the solution tries to do is to cover 3 of the 4, say, items of what we call the golden quadrant, which are basically key conditions for facilitating deep energy renovation. We do not cover the first one because we saw that's not a real major problem today. And so the first one would be low interest rates, but that's more or less taken care of by the market today. We are at historically low interest rates, at least in Belgium, and I suppose that that's more or less in the rest of Europe the same. The second one is the low monthly installments. We already indicated that we also saw it from the Multimeter poll, that the average monthly installments are rather low. So to address that and to allow deep energy renovation, which requires a substantial sum, we said, okay, we need to extend the loan period. In Belgium, for personal loans, it was legally limited to 10 years below a certain threshold of investment. And in de facto in the market, there is only one player who offers it up to 15 years. So basically it's 10 years. So what we said, okay, we need to prolong that to 20 years. So that's one of the elements that we wanted to do, that we do with the energy renovation loan at 2.0. Another one is also to increase the loan amount. There were already interesting energy loans provided by the regional government, but they were limited in terms of amount that you could borrow. It was limited to 10 to 15,000 euros. Now it's brought up to 50,000 euros. And also, we wanted to provide some technical assistance and also cover the cost thereof, just to be able to provide the technical assistance and to facilitate the preparation of often somewhat more complex projects. Just to be clear, its energy renovation loan is targeted at individual residential buildings. So that's maybe an important point that's not on this slide. That's the target group is individual households, which let's say are rather a large group of households, not let's say the poorest nor the richest, but a broad bracket of households with average incomes. We also provided for a solution for households which have only limited income and do not satisfy the approval criteria, let's say the standard approval criteria. There we work with an additional guarantee that is provided by the local authorities. And then so these are the generic characteristics. What we here see is how it has been structured. And here you see how we have used the different components from the barriers and solution matrix to, let's say, build one coherent solution. We have a number of components, a debt fund. We have the energy houses who provide the technical assistance. We have additional revenues that we have, a system for achieving additional revenues to be able to cover the cost of the technical assistance. There is an optional guarantee just in the case that the local authorities want to be able to offer the loan also to people who do not satisfy the acceptance criteria. And finally, another component is a refinancing solution, so that once you have the loans, you do not have to wait 20 years before the money is repaid back, but it's a way to refinance the loans so that you can reuse these financial means to give out new loans. We will go now into details on a number of these components. So how it is foreseen in the ER 2.0 that we will implement in the Flemish region. Then we have a equity of the fund is provided by local authorities, and debt is provided by the EIB, so the European Investment Bank. And we'll do that in a proportion of, for each euro of capital and equity that is provided by the local authorities, 5 euros of debt will be provided in the form of a loan by the European Investment Bank. So basically, you have 6 euros with which you can with which the fund can provide loans to individual households. The local authorities, so these 6 euros, sorry, will be used to provide loans. The local authorities who have invested equity in that fund can have a number of drawing rights pro rata their equity in that fund. So it means that the more that you provide equity as a local authority in that fund, the more loans that you will be able to extend to citizens of your territory. What we already said is that, so basically what we are doing is having a fund where you have a leverage of your local means. We already said it's at least 1 to 5, so for every euro of local money, you get 5 euro debt, so you can provide loans for the amount of 6 euro. But of course, if other parties, for instance, here in Belgium, the region or the provinces also invest in this fund, then the leverage of for the local authorities increases. Another way of increasing the leverage, so it's for each euro that the local authority puts in the fund, is the fact that it's a rolling fund. So if you put 1 euro in the fund, you get at least 5 additional euros from the EIB that can be used to provide loans. These loans are repaid, and with the money that is repaid, you can extend new loans. So basically, this is also a way to increase the leverage of the local authorities' invested funds. Next slide. So the first one was on the origin of the funds, equity and debt. The second point is the energy loan contract. We already indicated a number of its key features. It's a personal loan for energy efficiency investments and ancillary costs, up to 20 years, up to 50,000 euros, and it also provides technical assistance. It's a contract that is directly between the fund and the borrower. There are some standardized acceptation criteria that will be used for all participating local authorities. And and it's also a standardized contract. The standardization is very important if you want to limit the transaction costs upon the refinancing of your operations. And that's important. That's why you need to have these standardized acceptation criteria and contractual provisions. That's where we can explain the solidarity. So you have these different local authorities who participate in the fund. And there is solidarity amongst these local authorities organized through the fund, so that if, let's say, a certain borrower in the city, in one city defaults, that default is carried by all the participants to the fund. But that's only you can have this kind of solidarity because why? Because it's a standardized acceptation process. So it's there is no additional risk if a loan is granted to the citizen of another local authorities. There's no additional risk there. So the basic principle is solidarity among local authorities that are active in the fund. Oops. And now I do not see the presentation anymore.
We see it, look.
Okay, no worries.
I see it.
Okay, maybe I can do it.
Yeah, you change the slides.
Okay. But what we say is there is, if we can go back.
Excuse me, the slide is not okay.
Okay, so but there is also a possibility to providing a loan to people who do not satisfy the acceptation criteria. But in that case, there is no solidarity, and it's the local authority who wishes that a loan is granted to a household that does not satisfy the acceptation criteria that will need to provide an additional guarantee, which guarantees the defaulting of that party. Okay, next slide, please. Third element is the role of the energy houses. We already have a well-established network of energy houses in the Flemish region, and they will be the single point of contact with the clients for the distribution of this energy loan. They will do the communication and assist the client through the client journey, being from the very start to the very end of its relations with the fund. And we have also three alternative levels of technical assistance. And each has, of course, a particular cost. Okay. Next slide, please. The number of additional revenues. What we have said is that in so far as possible, we want to cover the cost of the technical assistance with additional revenues, meaning that we do not need to ask for a revenue, so for an additional cost to the borrowers. How do we want to do that? Mainly by monetarization of co-benefits. We will give you an example in the next slide. But there are other means to do that. So we have the membership card system that we'll explain in the next slide. There is also a possibility to secure additional subsidies from ELENA or from local or regional authorities. In the future, possibly also CO2 compensation credits and monetization of other co-benefits, for instance, social co-benefits. What we have done in the context of the FALCO project is to develop a membership card system. How does it work? Basically, you can make a parallel with, for instance, a credit card, a MasterCard, or Visa. If you're a member of these credit cards, you will receive a list of suppliers, of shops, which offer you a reduction, a rebate. So this is the same idea. Basically, we have the ER 2.0 fund. Okay, which, yeah, thank you, which will conclude a contract with partner suppliers, which are basically contractors who provide either goods or services in relation to the energy renovation. And the contract or the agreement between the fund and these partners is that every client, ER 2.0 client, so the client who has engaged into a loan agreement with the fund, receives a rebate. And that rebate, for instance, here it's 5%, will be in part used to finance the technical assistance. I do not have, okay, slight problem here with the arrow. But so that's the main idea is that the contractor who contracts with the ER 2.0 client will provide the ER 2.0 client a rebate, and that rebate, I do not explain it here, but is used in part to finance or to cover the technical assistance costs of the energy houses when providing technical assistance to the ER 2.0 clients. Okay, next slide. Refinancing, that's what we indicated at the start. It's a rolling fund. So basically you provide loans. These loans are repaid over a long-term period until you have the capital back and also the interest, so the principal and the interest. But it can take a long time, especially if you have loans that are have a period of 20 years. So what you can do is to sell basically the future repayments to the market so that you can immediately get your money back and reuse it. So the funds get its money back in a short period of time and can reuse it to extend new loans. What do you need for that? You need a sufficiently large portfolio of loans. So let's say at least 50, but more reasonably it will be 100 million euros, slightly depending on the instrument that you use. You need standardized contracts. We already indicated that, so that it's easier to indicate what kind of assets that you will sell. And also a track record. You will basically only sell off, let's say, the best loans that have a track record, people that have already been paying 2, 3, or 4 years without any problem. These kind of loans can be repackaged and can be then sold to the markets. There are different means to do that. So that's the last bullet. You can do that via securitization, via a special purpose vehicle, or you can do that via covered bonds or notes, which do not require a separate entity. There are indeed a number of implications to that, but there are several ways to organize that refinancing. So with that refinancing, you get your money faster back, and so you can extend new loans with that. Then the fund and its partners. The fund works. Well, the main partners of the funds are, of course, the shareholders, local authorities in our case, and the lenders, EIB. You have a board of directors, which focuses on the strategic management of the fund, an investment committee, which, well, you can, the way we see it is that it can take decision on more difficult investments, but will also control the fund manager, who offers, let's say, the operational day-to-day management and coordinates the fund's activities. Key partners, energy houses, which basically are the front office. They are the contact with the individual borrowers. And you have the servicing company, which basically organizes the back office, which will do the follow-up once the contract has been closed, which will do the follow-up of the monthly payments by the borrowers. And if there's a problem, we'll flag it to the energy houses so that the energy houses can get into contact with the borrower just to see where the problem is. This slide, and we will also provide you with a link to the slides, summarizes everything in one slide. We will not go more into detail on that, but that's basically the summary. Next slide. Okay, then I think this is for us also a key point, is to know whether this is relevant for you. These are a number of key questions that we would like to ask you, or on which you could reflect just to see whether this is relevant for you. Maybe to start with the first one, you would need a basic amount of equity, either yourself or with a number of local authorities, to be able to start. So at least 10 million euros. You also need to consider a certain volume of loans. It's of course linked to the above. This means that you need to consider at least 1,000 or more loans per year. You also need, of course, to be able to provide the technical capacity to support the loan developments, around 1,000 per year. Of course, if you work together with several municipalities or local authorities, you can spread that over a larger number of local authorities. You need to be patient. It takes a lot of time. But let's say when we look at what happened in Picardy in France, if I remember well, they from the first idea to the start, it took them between 8 and 10 years. I think that, okay, we have already benefited in part from their experience, but I think you need to take into account the lead time of 3 to 4 years. Specifically, if you are working with several local authorities, there is a whole process of explaining and of getting people on board. So it takes some time, but it can be used for several purposes. You could also use this not only for individual houses, but also for apartments. You need to adapt a few things. You can also use this, as we have done, to extend loans to, let's say, the poorer segment of the population, providing then a guarantee. So it takes a long time, but you can use it multi-purpose. And an important point is also that you need to have an idea how you will cover the technical assistance cost, because that can take up an important part of the budget. We already indicated here, but we will come back to it later on. If you say, okay, well, we covered that, then it's interesting to have a look at the European City Facility, who offers support just to look whether it's possible to tailor the solution that we presented to your specific local needs. That's all for now for me, except for a number of Mentimeter questions still open. Yeah, basically what we ask here is to indicate whether you agree or disagree with the following statements. Local authorities that invest equity in a debt fund, such as, for instance, the Euro 2.0 fund that we explained, use public money more efficiently than when they provide subsidies. So basically what we ask is it more efficient to provide equity in a fund than to provide subsidies? And the second question is, the possibility to expand via a guarantee scheme, the fund scope to other client segments substantially increases the value of the ER 2.0. So it's not what we say, it's not only limited to individual households, but it could also be extended to apartments, or what we have done to financially less wealthy people. Is that, do you consider that to be of value added, of high value added, or not?
And we are using the same Multimeter poll as the previous one during the whole presentation. So for each of the financing solutions that will be explained to it. So you can leave it open on your smartphone or tablet or on the PC screen.
Okay. Okay. So we basically more agree than disagree, which is always a good result. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luc, for your explication of the ER 2.0 solution. I just have a look in the chat whether there are some questions, because we have a little time, or if someone has one question that Luc can answer, you can just take the words, unmute your microphone, and formulate your question. And if not, you can always afterwards ask contact with us, and at the end we will ask whether you are interested to keep contact with us in order to discuss this more in more detail. Then I give the word.
I have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just wondering if this project has been applied already, and what are the experiences made by these kind of funds, if it has already been applied.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So basically, the fund that we presented is. So we are still in a setup phase for the Flemish region, but what you can do, and that's we also indicate that briefly in the presentation, is that it's very similar to what has been set up in France, in Picardy. So I will provide the exact a link. Fund in the comments, so you say it in the chat.
In the chat, yeah.
We'll do that in a few minutes. So there it has been in operation for, I think now it's 2 or 3 years, and it's also structured with equity from the regional authority in this case, and debt from the EIB, according to the same principle and same leverage, 1 to 5 euros. They also provide technical assistance. They also work with sort of energy houses. Their financing of the technical assistance is slightly different. So there are differences, but let's say the core is very similar.
And we can already share our experiences in the developing phase of this energy loan. So in a next phase, if you're interested to take it up for replication in your region or for your local authority, we can share these experiences and how to begin, what you have to do, etc.